Yo, testing 1 2 1 2. What is going on? I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm Marcus here. We do attorney reactions to current events and news, and we're gonna dive into some stories today. A disclaimer: I am not your attorney, even though I'm a licensed attorney. So, not legal advice, just opinion, takes on topics and current events. And also, before we dive in, thank you to everyone who supports the channel, who views, who comments. Shout out to the members. A big salute to you all for the membership. Again, I'm very appreciative, very grateful, and very humble for the support. Let's go ahead and dive into the first story. The first story is something like we're going to talk about scams. Every now and then, we like to talk about scams on this channel. What's going on with scams? And sometimes there are scams that occur where I'm just actually confused how the hell someone fell for them. Y'all let me know, is this a legit scam that you could see should be able to finesse someone, or is this just ridiculous and it's completely absurd and the people who fell for it, you should have kind of know better. Even though we don't want to victim blame, sometimes we are just a little bit. Let's go ahead, dive in, and let's get it.
But first, and only on Fox Report, another Wells Fargo customer is out tens of thousands of dollars after falling victim to an elaborate scheme we've been telling you about now in the series only here at Fox 26. And this time, there's video of one of the alleged fraudsters. Here's Randy Wallace with more.
Okay. Pay attention to that, because we watch fraud videos all the time, but normally it's the news reporter or the authorities talking about what happened to someone. Alleged footage of the fraudster is actually something that's kind of rare that happens, especially in like a bank scheme. So immediately I was like, huh? They got footage of the fraudster. This is odd. This sounds like it might be a little bit different.
May 16th, you get a phone call that appears to be Wells Fargo.
The next thing I notice is it's an older gentleman. Okay, I don't know his age, but it's an older gentleman. And this dude could be my age for all I know, but he appears to be an older gentleman, which is a population that is targeted. All right, so let's go and pick it up. Wells Fargo is giving him a call. At some point, this shit is going to get ridiculous, in my opinion.
You get a phone call that appears to be Wells Fargo.
That's correct.
What'd they tell you?
They told me that there was fraud alerts on my account on a couple of charges that they didn't feel like were mine, and they wanted to know if I had a minute to go through them.
She was also able to tell you transactions that were valid.
Absolutely.
That you did make.
Which again is what gave me the kind of assurance that I was talking to a real person.
Now, what happened so far, we've done stories about before. People get a call from a person from an official number that's spoofed. So far, I'm like, okay, I could see how someone might fall for this. They were able to tell them about legit transactions, along with transactions that they assert he may not have been done, may have been fraudulent.
When they show up to your door, they are going to identify themselves, and then they are going to share this code.
Pump the brakes. Rustle around this real quick.
I was talking to a real person. When they show up to your door, they are going to identify themselves, and then they are going to share this code with you.
Okay, here we got to take a pause. Shout out to Harley. I appreciate you tuning in, Battle. Thank you. Someone showed up to his door asserting they're from Wells Fargo. Let's do this. I have never. The only time I could think of where individual from a bank is going to physically show up to your door is maybe if it's a home loan type of situation, seller, broker, real estate agent. They're going to show up to your house. So I've never seen an instance in like there's certain banks when you have a certain amount of collective money and collective accounts, you go from being just a customer to an actual banker, and they give you like preferential treatment. They let you go get your money out of the back. They have security escort you out. They have all of these things. You pretty much get a concierge at this bank. And even when you get to that level, never has a person from any financial institution, I don't care what you got in it, actually showing up to your house. Unless you got like Scrooge McDuck, Beverly Hillbilly money, general average people, I don't think are going to just show up to your house from a bank. That's an immediate red flag. I expect Hey, shout out to you, Paul. I agree. I think it's absurd to expect someone from the bank to come to your house, unless it's like a real estate purchase or transaction. Then I'd be like, you might get somebody to come by, sign some documents. Still not a banker per se, but that should have been a huge red flag. Actually, a huge red flag that kind of makes me shift some of the blame. Again, not completely victim blaming. You did get finesse, but this should have been a huge ass red flag that an actual banker from Wells Fargo allegedly, purportedly, hypothetically showed up to your house.
To tell you transactions that were valid
Absolutely.
that you did make.
Which again is what gave me the kind of assurance that I was talking to a real person. When they show up to your door, they are going to identify themselves and then they are going to share this code with you.
You got it on your ring cam.
Yes, she's standing on my door and identified herself as Wells Fargo. She said, I have a code for you.
Okay, this is actually crazy. If my doorbell rung and I saw this image on my doorbell right here, this is all I have on my image right here. Now I know I got this call, but this is all I have on the image. I have just a random person with nothing but hair over their face. If this is a horror movie, The Ring or something, kind of look disheveled with the pants out in the back, the shirt, blouse untucked in the back, tucked in the front, holding a manila envelope, asserting to be from a bank. I'm gonna actually tell them, y'all might want to get off my porch because you're about to get robbed. You actually gonna get off of my porch. This image is ridiculous, and I'm gonna just be honest. Like, I'm sure when he reported this to the police and showed this image, they were probably like, "Wow, I can't believe people are actually falling for the banker showing up." This is the image. This is actually crazy.
Wells Fargo. I have a code for you whenever you're ready.
The code matched at that point. I pulled my card out of my pocket. She had a pair of scissors with her.
This is where it gets crazy too. If her showing up should not have alerted you that this heifer, respectfully, is not from the bank, what she did next with the manila envelope should have immediately raised another red flag. All of this is one big red flag, but this whole envelope, scissors in her hand, showing up to your door is crazy.
Wells Fargo. I have a code for you whenever you're ready.
The code matched at that point. I pulled my card out of my pocket. She had a pair of scissors with her. She cut the card in half. She put the card in a white envelope, sealed it, then stuck that white envelope in a brown envelope and sealed it, and basically drove off.
Last month.
This is not a complicated scam. I've seen this scam before. We talked about this scam on the channel. Typically, when you see this scam where people are really susceptible is when they do everything over the phone. So essentially what happens, somehow hackers were able to get his login information, probably his email address or his username. And what they'll do is, this is normally how you'll see it, where people probably are more likely to fall for it. If somebody show up to your house, it's bullshit. Just do not pass go, do not collect $200. They should go straight to jail, and you should too if you fall for it. But normally, you'll see this exact same thing play out. Someone will call from the bank from a spoof number that is exactly identified as the bank number. And then when they call, we've seen some bogus transactions on your card. To confirm that you are talking to someone from a financial institution, we are going to send a code to your phone. And what happens then, how you get the code to your phone, they attempted to either log into your account and were unsuccessful, or because they have your username, they go to forgot my password. Then when they go to forgot my password, they are going to, they can say, once I went to forgot my password and I got your username, once the website directs me, hey, we're going to send a pin to your phone, they'll say, hey, can you give us the pin, or is this the pin? And once you confirm the pin, stupidly, now you've given them access. And once they get access, the first thing they do is change all your contact information. So when the bank tries to call you about the fraud, you won't get in the calls or the emails because they changed all your contact information. That's normally how you see it. The fact that somebody actually showed up to this dude's house and physically took his card, cut it in half, put it in 2 different envelopes, and he felt safe and secure in that transaction is actually ridiculous. Wait, why does she have scissors? The scissors is wild. I've never seen anybody travel. It's very few professions that should travel with scissors as they're knocking on your door. That's actually kind of crazy. Yeah. Multi-factor authentication, that's some random person. I agree. But with multi-factor, because he clearly had multi-factor authentication, because that's essentially when the financial institution will send you a message. So I've actually seen articles out there that frown upon multi-factor authentication because if someone can compromise your cell phone or can do you know how they can do a mirror image of your phone to see any movement or any transactions that are done on your phone in real time. Pretty much some people say multi-factor authentication is kind of trash because once your cell phone is compromised, all of your bank information and access is compromised. Depends on what your school of thought is, but this is absolutely insane that he fell for this.
We told you about a Kingwood couple that almost lost $8,000 in the same scheme. Here's a picture of the woman they say showed up to get their card. Look familiar?
This is actually crazy, okay? This is actually even better view. I didn't even go through this whole video. This is actually better view. Now, okay, nothing about this shit, nothing about this shit say federally insured financial institution to me. This lady is actually looking crazy sitting out here. She clearly only got one outfit to do this. This is actually insane. From looking at the background, this is actually crazy. Are these 2 separate instances? It look like they're in the exact same fucking neighborhood. Just from the, this is actually crazy, bro. Now that I watched this whole video, it's getting crazier and crazier. Are they showing what I believe to be 2 images of the same scammer from 2 separate incidences with the same scam, and it looks like they're in similar neighborhoods? If we just look at the makeup, that can't be. That got to be the same. That got to be the same woman from the same image. There's no way these are 2 different images. Nah, it can't be.
$8,000 in the same scheme. Here's a picture of the woman they say showed up to get their card. Look familiar? This woman and someone in a dark car.
Correct, little black
Basically went to a Kroger and an HEB.
2 HEBs.
2 HEBs in your neighborhood.
Probably within 2.5 miles of my front door.
And stole about $20,000.
A little over $20,000 in less than 30 minutes.
Within a matter of days, you get a letter from Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
They said that you or someone you know did this.
Yeah, they basically accused me of transferring the money into the account and then authorizing the charges.
What did you think when they tried to blame you?
That's just the easy way out for a gigantic organization.
Wow. So, Randy, you've been doing some great work on this, my man.
On the DFD scamometer, this is like a level 3 out of 10. Wait, really? You probably should have known better.
I got to say that. And thank you guys at home for reaching out to Randy. And you guys are following those leads. But Wells Fargo, what are they saying?
Well, they're going to take a spokesman says they're going to take another look at Scott's particular case. And they point out that this is an industry problem. It's not just Wells Fargo Bank. I mean, every bank is susceptible to these kinds of frauds. Now, they do say at no time is Wells Fargo going to ask you to give up your card, to mail it to them, or if somebody, they're not going to send somebody over to cut it in half. They've got some really good tips that are on our website now for folks.
Shout out to well, I ain't gonna lie. If I'm an investigator at Wells Fargo, I'm thinking this is a finesse too. I would literally be like, somebody came in your house and you gave them the card, bruh. Nah, I don't believe you. You might be in on it. I'm just gonna be honest, yeah. I was watching earlier some scammers that had spent time, and the Fed said they use homeless people's social to receive tax credits and loans for millions. They pay the homeless people $20. Yeah, that happens all the time. I've actually covered a story where a scammer would get somehow compromise and get bogus socials to apply for PPP loans. The scammer's father's died, and immediately upon her father dying, she utilized her and her boyfriend or husband utilized her father's social to get like $100 and something thousand in PPP loans. So it's actually crazy. This is a ridiculous thing that probably no one should have fallen for. Now, next up, I want to talk about former attorney general who is down bad now. Let me pull something up real quick. Okay, because I want to make sure we got the details. This is actually sad because I had a chance to meet this sister. She had a very bright future, and her first fatal faux pas, which was not anything illegal, was when she decided to prosecute Baltimore City police officers. Now, I'm actually not saying that the police officers should not have been prosecuted for what was going on and how cops were treating citizens. I think that was the right call. But generally, and I talked about it on this channel, if you're a state prosecutor and you have to be able to use law enforcement within your jurisdiction as your vehicle to support your prosecutions. So anytime law enforcement does something bad, you cannot prosecute them yourself. You cannot have someone from your office prosecute them. You have to go to the next county over in your state and grab a special prosecutor and bring him in to conduct an investigation to see if the officer should be prosecuted. If you don't do that, you will essentially jeopardize your ability to uphold the law in your community. Once you prosecute the cops, whether it's right or wrong, a lot of times the cops ain't gonna want to fuck with you. That's just what it is. The cops are an organization like any other organization, and they have loyalties and allegiances as well. So prosecutors should never prosecute cops within their district because it's going to jam them up. The officers aren't going to work to further your investigations. You get a special prosecutor, somebody else from another county to come in, do the investigation. If they find wrongdoing, let them prosecute it so you can always stay hands off and stay clean. She declined to do that, and declining to do that, her law enforcement said, you know what, if y'all want to prosecute us, we aren't going to work hard. And it was just an utter mess. But Marilyn Mosby, who had a promising career, was a young black woman who was an attorney general, but her attorney general run was kind of marred in disgrace as she was charged and convicted for making false mortgage applications, 2 counts of perjury. She was sentenced to 12 months of home confinement as a part of a 36-month supervised release. So she is now a convicted felon. Being a convicted felon, normally, I guess you would think as someone who was a state's attorney and a convicted felon, at some point you would say, you know what? Ownership and accountability is something I'm going to do so I can turn the page and move over to the next chapter. But I want y'all to see how this story is reported by the news. It's actually funny. Let me hit this comment real quick. Then we're going to jump in to former state's attorney Marilyn Mosby being down bad. I agree 100%. That's a great point, Paul. I tell my parents this all the time because my mother would call me and be like, UPS sent me a text and said I got a package. Should I click on it? I'd be like, did you order anything? She'd be like, no. I'm like, well, don't click on it. Don't do anything. But that's like, hang up. Don't call them on the number they give you. Call them on the number that's on the back of your bank card. Shout out to you. Great advice. Like, let's see what's going on with ousted, disgraced former Attorney General Marilyn Mosby.
Welcome to the news at 5. I'm Nikki Zizaza.
And I'm Rick Ritter. Also tonight, former top city prosecutor Marilyn Mosby, now free from home detention and is not holding back, revealing that she hit rock bottom following her federal convictions. And also tonight, she is lashing out at City State's Attorney Ivan Bates now.
Our WJZ investigator Mike Helgren covered both of Mosby's trials, gavel to gavel. He's live in Baltimore with what she's saying now. Mike.
Nikki, Rick, Mosby repeatedly mentioned her faith. She says some of her supporters abandoned her. The former prosecutor shows no remorse for her federal convictions, and she has some harsh criticism for Ivan Bates, who she says filed a complaint against her.
All right. It's funny because the news reporters are saying she showed no remorse. She's still complaining. When we actually covered Marilyn Mosby during the trial and at the height of the accusations and the drama, she did what everyone does, is you lean into religion. Like, if I get convicted of something, I'm going to church. I'm going to every church I ever went to, and I'm going to lean into religion because that's just kind of what you do to garner public support these days. It's funny, I said that, and somebody left a comment was like, don't play with the Lord. I was like, what? Any event, but she was doing what we've seen everybody do. Like, you go to the church, you get in the pulpit, you want to garner support for the community. But it's funny because the news outlet is reporting this as she's down bad and she has no remorse for anything that she's done. She's 8 federal convictions. And once you're a felon and a former attorney, you probably schooled twice. That's actually kind of crazy.
I lost everything. I lost my marriage. I lost my career. I lost my house. I lost my car. It was my home. It was a lot. And so many, folks that I thought, again, would be there weren't.
To say
She lost her marriage. I believe she was married to a state senator, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that Marilyn Mosby was married to a state senator. She lost her marriage. She lost her friends. Everything that she had worked hard for. Hey, let's just keep it a buck. The city of Baltimore was probably really happy when she won that position as Attorney General. She's relatively young for a politician, and if she's not young, she perceives and has a young, youthful look. Black woman, like, those are the things that the community tends to support, and sometimes they end in colossal failure. We've seen this over and over and over again. But the community generally wants to support people who have this appearance, who make these triumphant political victories. But she's lost everything. And just as a news flash to her, when you're a public figure charged with prosecuting people for committing crime and you commit crime, once you're convicted, you probably will lose everything. That's just the nature of how convictions work, especially for people who at one point were obligated for upholding the law within their community.
the past few years have been tough on former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is an understatement.
I always say that you learn lessons. I learned lessons at rock bottom that peaks of mountaintops will never teach you.
Yeah.
So it required me to hit rock bottom, for me to lose everything, for me to open my eyes and to get back to myself.
Convicted of 2 counts of perjury and 1 count of making false statements on a mortgage application, Mosby is now out of home detention but continues on supervised release. She spoke to supporters on the Native Land podcast.
This is miscarriage of justice.
Right now, I'm technically a felon, right? So a felon, as a felon, in this country, if you're not Donald Trump with 34 felons.
Bruh, why? Hey, I get it. This is what everyone is going to do. You're going to ring the bell. And if you're a person on the left, you're going to be like, yo, other people got felonies that are in powerful positions. Why can't mine go away? Absolute terrible move. This is actually the worst thing that she could do. Literally, she should have came and hollered at your boy, because if this were me, once she was off home confinement, she knew the news would have been out there. Like, real talk, she should have probably been trying to kiss up to President Trump. He probably, one thing we know for sure and two things for certain, President Trump is transactional, and he'll pardon somebody. He'll pardon somebody who may or may not deserve it. man, I would have leaned in. This serves you no purpose. Like, you should have leaned in and pulled the Eric Adams and talked about, yeah, immigration in Baltimore is terrible. You should have probably leaned in, because that would have been your best chance of making these felonies go away, is by having Trump come through and sign one of those nice papers on your behalf. Terrible mistake. We've seen Eric Adams finesse the system. You could have probably finessed it. Hey, he's transactional, so he is willing to make a deal. And terrible for you. I think this was the absolute wrong call.
You running for president, you are a second-class citizen.
Mosby revealed State's Attorney Ivan Bates, who replaced her, filed a formal complaint against her handling of the Adnan Syed case. Syed, now out of prison, long maintained his innocence in the killing of Hae-Min Lee and garnered national attention through the Serial podcast. Bates previously said Mosby's motion to vacate his sentence contains false and misleading statements.
Really?
Again, right there, I don't know what she's talking about. But the fact that the current state's attorney who took your job after you were disgraced and became a convicted felon actually submitted a motion before the court saying that a motion you did to support a conviction contained false information, he's 100% doing the right job. He wouldn't be doing that if it didn't contain false information. That's just what he's writing, alleging that you had the bogus information in your pleadings to the court. He has to be able to prove that they're false in order for him to do that. So the fact that you're mad at him now for doing that is absolutely insane. He's doing the job. He's doing the same thing that your ass should have been doing or would have done had you still been in that situation. No, I think she would be screwed for bar purposes. I agree, because moral turpitude, and correct me if I'm wrong, generally that's like money shit, stealing, embezzlement, larceny, those type of things, because it really goes directly to your truthfulness. I agree that even if she were to get those felonies magically removed by the president, I don't think that would do anything for her ability to practice law as an attorney. Now, I don't know. I thought if it was a federal crime, if you can make a federal murder and federal drug charges go away, I'm sure you can make a federal false statements and federal perjury charges go away. That was my thinking. I take a look, but I thought that the president had. I didn't think that there was any crime exempt from that, but I do agree with you 100%. I don't care if all of those shits went away. She definitely wouldn't have the ability to practice law anymore. Let's see. Yeah, drug conviction. Maybe if it was a felony DUI, because it was like your third one in 7 years. Or maybe if it was anything else that was like a federal felony, probably not. But yeah, moral turpitude crimes. You're right on that, Harley, as well, R. Royster. All right, let's go and finish seeing what she's talking about. It's giving blame game to me, though. I'm going to just be honest.
A shucking and jiving, we got those folks that tap dance.
Wait, what?
Statements.
Really a shucking and jiving, we got those folks that tap dance and hold the water for the status quo.
She looked confused. Like, see, that's the thing. Like, if you come on a platform and someone's talking to you, you got to actually be able to like ask a hard question, like, well, do you take accountability or ownership for the things that you were convicted for, what you've done, considering your former role as someone required to uphold justice within your community? This lady looked confused, like, what the hell? This is actually a crazy interview.
Well, and that's essentially what's being done.
While Bates' spokesman says he cannot comment on the Syed case, he did tell WJZ Investigates, while some have criticized our office for moving beyond the policies of the previous administration, the progress we've made in reducing homicides in Baltimore tells a different story, one grounded in results, not rhetoric. By repealing ineffective non-prosecution policies, we've empowered our police officers to re-engage fully in the mission of public safety.
The people of Baltimore voted for this man, and just like Trump, they voted against their own self-interest.
Bruh. I'm gonna just be honest, yo. It's 2024. 2025. We're spiraling to 2026. Nobody ever looks good doing Trump bashing. Like, I'm gonna just tell you, like, I don't care if your statements are true. Everybody is tired of this guy is bad. Look how terrible he is. Like, if that shit worked, he wouldn't be in office right now. Like, if nobody ever wants to hear about how bad someone is, we always want to hear about what the hell you got going on. You worried about everybody else. Tell us about what you got going on. What you gonna do? I just think that Trump bashing is generally a stupid approach politically, and is really stupid for her because he has the authority to probably help her out. She should have took a page out of Eric Adams' playbook.
Mosby also spoke about the Florida vacation homes at the center of her criminal case.
I had to sell one for attorney's fees, and then one is pending this appeal. The government is trying to take it.
She's still hoping.
And she said the government is trying to take it. She was convicted of false statements on a mortgage application, and she's talking about the government is trying to take it as if it was something that she actually should be entitled to, even though she clearly made false statements on the mortgage application. I don't get it. This is confusing.
Her conviction will be overturned as part of that appeal.
It's been a constant struggle and a battle that we won temporarily until this appeal is ultimately decided.
And that appeal is pending before the Fourth Circuit. Mosby tried to get President Biden to pardon her while he was still in office, but he did not do so. Reporting live in your corner, Mike Helgren, W.
Bruh. Biden didn't pardon you, and now you're on here talking shit about Trump, who can actually pardon you. He actually will probably give you the best opportunity to pardon yourself if you just show a little gamesmanship. But hey, shout out to Marilyn Mosby for not learning her lesson and clearly not, in my opinion, I see no accountability, no lesson learned. The Fourth Circuit is North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland. Would these get overturned? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't even looked at her appeals, but unless it's some nuanced legal question, and false statements and perjury are not complex charges that people will generally fuck up and have an appealable issue. Unless it's just some ridiculous things that going on, I would be shocked. I just don't see it happening, in my personal opinion. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Let's see, real quick. Is it too much for us to ask that those who uphold and protect the law also do not break the law? It happens on both sides. Both sides of the political aisle. Wealthy politicians do it. Broke politicians do it. Black politicians do it. White politicians do it. It's just people in general. People breaking the law, and the same percentage of people who break the law is probably gonna have those same or similar numbers if you look within a certain demographic. Like, for instance, they say 70% of people live paycheck to paycheck. I'm sure if you took 10 NBA players, 7 out of 10 of them probably live paycheck to paycheck. Generally, statistic and data points like that hold true across any spectrum. So politicians are going to have its percentage of criminal just like the general public does, and it's actually ridiculous. Now, I actually had an interesting story that I saw, but I probably save it for Friday. It was about a police officer who was a fake ass drug dealer who ended up getting murdered. But it was so new, I didn't get all of it. So I was like, you know what? We'll save that story. Let's talk about this one real quick. Now, this one, there was a video, but I feel like the article will do us a little bit more justice. All right, this is actually fucking insane. Let's go ahead. Hold on. Let's remove this. Let's share this article. I don't know if y'all remember, but when I was younger, we didn't really have no bread like that. So I can remember like having a couple dollars, and I would go to like they called it the Market Deli. It was a little corner store, not a 7-Eleven, but a little deli you can go and get a sandwich from or a pickle. But no one would ever get the pickles because that shit was crazy. But you would get little snacks and stuff, and they had a shelf right beside the door. And this shelf was amazing because this back in the day, I don't know what inflation rates are now, because I don't eat that shit now. But it was just nothing but pastries. And it would be pecan twirls, which were fire. I love pecan twirls. It'd be honey buns, donut sticks. And they would all be like, at one point, they were 25 cents, bro. You get a whole 2 pecan twirls or one nice size honey bun for a quarter. Then I remember it went up to like 35 cents. It's probably like $1 now for one. But that was the kind of go-to when you wanted a snack, but you was broke as hell. You could get a little juice for like 50 cents, get you a couple of items off of the cheap-ass pastry snack racket over there, and then you just go on about your business as a kid. And nothing hit harder. I don't know about you all. I don't know if you all were honey bun persons. To this day, sometimes I occasionally will get a honey bun, and when I do get one, I go to the microwave. I put it in for about somewhere between 10 to 20 seconds, depending on the microwave. You don't want to make it too hot. That should burn the fuck out of you. The bag swells up, but a microwave honey bun is fire. And as good as a microwave honey bun is, I don't know if it's ever been this good. This is actually an insane story. Let's see. Hold on, I got to close that out. That's not the one I want. I want to pull up. Here you go. This is actually an insane story, which is actually crazy. Okay. Argument over honey buns led to deadly shooting in DeKalb County. This brother right here is wild as hell. You have to have other issues are going on between the persons in the household, or two, you kind of just like out there just gone, or some potentially mental cognitive thing going on. This is actually crazy. Okay, an argument over stolen snacks leads to a deadly shooting that landed the victim's nephew behind bars. Roderick Crowley, 48, was shot and killed on Loveless Drive earlier this month. Michael Crowley, 29, was arrested and charged with his murder. According to a police report, the suspect's father said the incident started when Michael Crowley confronted his uncle about eating his honey buns. Okay. It makes sense now. Just a little bit. It was more than one honey bun. I didn't know it was plural. So, according to police report, the suspect's father said the incident started when Michael Crowley confronted his uncle about eating his honey buns. The report said Michael Crowley asked Roderick Crowley for money to replace the honey bun, but the older man began to hit Michael Crowley in the back of the head, despite knowing his history with seizures and brain surgery. This is when the report says Michael Crowley fired 4 shots at his uncle. When officers arrived, they found Crowley hiding in the woods. Okay, now this is an actual vital question, okay? Do you think, this is a legit question. Do you think, well, there's a couple of things, okay? One, I guess the first question is, did he have the gun on him? The first question I want to know is, did he have the firearm on him? It sounds like he did, but we don't know. It's different if you have a firearm that you're lawfully allowed to possess actually on you versus if uncle started hitting him in his head, then he goes out, runs to the room, get a gun, and come back and shoot him. So yeah, I would want to know, where was the gun? Did he have to go get the gun? Did he have the gun on him? The other thing is, I'm going to just be honest, you have to accept a person as they are. As someone who has had brain surgery, I don't got time to be sitting here fighting everybody, okay? I'm not going to do it, okay? Not saying I'm going to just pull a honey bun guy here and just smoke somebody, but there is an argument where if I'm susceptible to brain injuries that could lead to my death, unlike a normal person, a fist fight may actually be a more deadly, dire circumstance for me than it would for somebody else, depending on how sensitive I am due to my seizures or surgery or other things like that. So I'm not so even though shooting your uncle over a honey bun is crazy. I know it's actually crazy, but I could see a situation where it's actually arguable that this shooting was in fact self-defense because him with his brain injuries make him more susceptible to having a fatality or severe bodily injury as a result to a blow to the head. I think it was important that the article said the uncle started punching him in his head, and due to his sensitive history with uh, seizure and brain surgery, and the uncle, this is the other thing, I'm going to read it. The report says Michael Crowley asked Roderick Crowley for money to replace the honey bun, but the older man began to hit Michael Crowley in the back of the head. Here's the key, in the back of the head, despite knowing his history of seizures and brain surgeries. I actually think that that's actually a great argument for the defendant in this case, that he was trying to defend himself from death or severe bodily harm. And I'm gonna be honest, just on that article alone, I could be a little bit biased, but the way that article is written, if you know of my sensitive brain issues and you proceed to attack me, not by punching me in the chest or the arm, you just immediately start punching me in the back of the head. You trying to delete me, bro. As crazy as the honey bun story is, and you just see everybody making light of, oh, it was a honey bun, this is wild. But this dude actually has a legitimate self-defense argument, in my opinion. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Did this dude have a legitimate self-defense argument? Is it just me being too sensitive as someone who had multiple brain surgeries before? But I don't think it's out of the realm of plausibility that his actions in his mind were justified considering what was going on, considering the facts as we know them. I would say yes and no, okay? Now, we know some jurisdictions, that's a good point, Paul. Let's talk about this real quick. We know some jurisdictions have a duty to retreat. You have to retreat before you engage in the use of deadly force. But we can only go by what we got on the article. The guy asked him for money. He didn't initiate it. The uncle is the one who initiated. I always say this with the duty to retreat. The duty to retreat is BS because when do I have to start retreating? When he start punching me in the head? Once he starts punching me in the head, there's a duty to retreat. But the duty to retreat, in my opinion, and you all let me know, but the duty to retreat from cases I've seen occurs prior to the contact occurring. That's like some goofy states. If you're in your house, you have a duty to retreat. If it's somebody knocking at that door and I look out the Ring camera and I see they have guns in their hand, in some jurisdictions, I can't just shoot through the door and blast them up. Or I can't wait at the top of the stairs and when they come through the door, I start blasting them up. Now, you could do that, and if I'm on your jury, you're probably going to go home. But some goofy states like, oh, you had a duty to leave. It took them 4 minutes to get to the door, so you could have ran out the back or barricaded yourself upstairs. When does the duty to retreat, no, I don't know. Like, it took them 4 minutes to barricade the door, but you don't know that because it only took what if they hit the door the second time it went through? So I don't think that he had a duty to retreat because how the report is written is he asked him a question, confronted him, and the guy initiated the attack. Once the attack is underway, there is no duty to retreat. There's only a duty to prevent severe bodily harm or death. Because of his sensitive brain issues, I think that's a great argument. Yo, shout out to him. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it, but I think that dude has a great argument. I don't know. Self-defense, yes. But then again, I don't know. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm a little biased. If I was on that jury, I'm like, hey, brain brother, I got you. You going home today. But I thought that story was interesting because everybody was focused on the honey bun. And I might carve this out as a short video. Everybody was focused on the honey bun, but not focused on the nuances of his argument. This guy actually got a good chance to go home and dodge and avoid all of this, in my personal opinion. All shootings aren't created equal. Oh, man. Now, real quick, we are going to dive into this final story. This is a story about a man who, we'll talk about whether he was correctly or incorrectly charged, but a man who was facing 10 years, and now his mother is potentially facing time in custody because she was trying to do the motherly thing and stand up for her son. This is actually a very interesting story. Let's go ahead. I want to cue up the video on this one real quick because I had to find this video on another link. For some reason, I couldn't find it on YouTube. Let's go ahead, share the screen. All right, y'all let me know if y'all can hear this because it was kind of low for some reason.
Guard in 2023 when he fired a warning shot at a belligerent. Nicholas Williams was working as a security guard in 2023 when he fired a warning shot at a belligerent, brick-throwing trespasser, hitting the man in the leg. Well, police arrested him, and Williams faced a minimum of 10 years in prison until he was saved by the equivalent of a legal miracle.
Okay, now real quick, let's kind of break this down. Immediately, this is giving me cause to pause. Just what they said on the news article. We're talking about he's a security guard. He's using his firearm to fire a warning shot, which I've been a security guard before. It was many eons ago. But generally, it is frowned upon. Warning shots are a no-go. Warning shots are like the stupidest thing. I've been through security guard training. I know people who are security guards now, armed and unarmed. They all collectively tell me warning shots are a no-go. If your gun is being discharged, it's because there's an immediate threat of death or severe bodily harm for you or a third party who you are authorized to protect in that situation. Warning shots, absolutely stupid. So let's talk about this first part of what happened.
Hitting the man in the leg. Well, police Williams was working as a security guard in 2023 when he fired a warning shot at a belligerent, brick-throwing trespasser, hitting the man in the leg. Well, police arrested.
What's important about this? The guy was a trespasser. The fact that he was a trespasser, it clearly shows that this gentleman who's the security officer and this trespasser had some interaction before, because you can't be trespassed when you just go. If I just show up to a business and show my ass, I'm technically not trespassed. I have to go there, something happened, they tell me to leave and not come back. Then that second time, like, yeah, you are a trespasser because you've been here before. So there is some relationship there. They say this gentleman threw a brick. I need to know, was he throwing this brick at the security guard? Was he throwing it at a customer? Was he throwing it at a window? Did he randomly throw it at a crowd of people? It all makes a difference. But the biggest thing here that's giving me issues is it's a warning shot. If you are firing a shot warning him, to me, that denotes that there is no immediate fear of death or severe bodily harm. That's just on his face. Now, we got to remember here, what's going to be interesting is the warning shot was fired in firearm enhancements. Some crimes, when you commit them, if you have, I actually did a paper on this back in the day when I was working for a federal judge and it was new. Some crimes, when you commit them, if there's a firearm, if you possess a firearm, it enhances it. If you use a firearm during the commission of whatever that original crime is, it enhances it. If you display it, if you possess it, that's one enhancement. If you display it, that's a higher enhancement. If you discharge it, that's a higher enhancement. And the research was on if this is fair or not. But remember, there are such things as firearm enhancements. We got to know that going in before we finish this video.
Arrested him, and Williams faced a minimum of 10 years in prison until he was saved by the minimum of 10 years in brick-throwing trespasser, hitting the man in the leg. Well, police arrested him, and Williams faced a minimum of 10 years in prison until he was saved by the equivalent of a legal miracle. Investigative reporter Mike Perlstein explains in this exclusive story.
It was a security guard trying to protect the customers.
How could you possibly arrest someone for protecting themselves?
Quite unusual.
His family, his attorney, and independent legal experts all shake their head at the case of Nicholas Williams.
Do y'all think this is an instance of him shooting a warning shot at a guy who was throwing a brick? We don't know who or the context of him throwing that brick, but generally, just let me know in the chat with a yes or no. Do you think that him shooting that warning shot constitute him essentially trying to protect himself or someone else? Y'all let me know yes or no before we watch any further. Y'all let me know in the chat.
A longtime security guard at the Family Dollar store in Gentilly.
His job was to kind of keep the public and the community safe, and that's what he was doing, because he fired a warning shot. Wasn't trying to hit anybody.
But according to a police...
Real quick, and I'm not trying to say this brother should have done 10 years, but I generally disagree. I generally disagree with that statement. When you are a security guard, your actual job is not to keep the public safe. Okay, that's actually not within your job description. Typically, I've been a security guard walking around my tight ass top flight security outfit, khakis on. Generally, it's to protect the merchandise of the financial institution or the company. That's generally what your number one job is. Actually, they'll tell you like, hey, if someone comes in and it's something physical, a lot of times they like don't even interact. Like you're just here as a show of force, or if you see someone's doing something to the merchandise, you actually call the authorities. Generally, they tell you actually not to engage. That's actually kind of common. But I disagree that the security guard's job is to protect the public. I disagree with that statement.
Keep the public and the community safe, and that's what he was doing, because he fired a warning shot. Wasn't trying to hit anybody.
But according to a police report...
Okay, just another thing. This is just how it is. This standard is held to officers, even though we know officers have all these qualified immunities. But when you fire a gun, I don't care if it's warning shot, you're shooting it in the air for New Year's, you are accountable for that bullet. That's why they always tell you, if you're familiar with use of force situations, a self-defender and you have a firearm, they tell you have to be aware of what's going on in your background. Because if you shoot at someone, if I shoot at the ground, if I shoot in the air, the warning shot, and I miss, I'm responsible for what that bullet hits when it misses my target or when it ricochets off the ground. So again, I'm not saying this brother should have gotten 10 years. I'm just saying that just some of the statements that are being made, I believe I just disagree with. You are responsible for that bullet because your finger was the initial action that set the bullet in motion. So, like, hey, he wasn't shooting at the guy, but what if he would have shot a warning shot? It would have ricocheted off the ground and hit a 2-year-old girl. I think in that situation, everybody would have been like, yo, bro, you pulled the trigger. You responsible for the shot. So you can't pick and choose. Oh, he didn't mean to hit the guy. He was just like, you can't pick and choose. You pull the trigger. You responsible for the bullet and where it goes afterwards.
Williams' bullet hit Landon Guidry, a 32-year-old homeless man. Guidry was known to police for multiple arrests and convictions, and he was well known to Williams for repeatedly getting kicked out of the store.
Okay, so they had a relationship. We kind of figured that from the language. The guy was repeatedly in the store. He was kicked out before. That actually goes into a fact that's important here. Let's just think about it. You knew this guy because this guy was repeatedly in the store. If he was repeatedly in the store, when you kicked him out previously, this is just something I would want to know. When you kicked him out previously, did you ever have to pull your firearm out? Did you actually have to physically assault him? Did he normally just leave unilaterally on his own? This guy was repeatedly in the store. Y'all repeatedly had interactions. I'm sure this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time he did some crazy shit. I'm just saying, again, not trying to jam this guy up. These are just questions I would want to know the answer to so I can make a determination on whether his actions justified or not. How have you removed him from the property previously? What was his interactions? Has he came there throwing bricks before? If he didn't, okay, this is something the first impression. If he came there, he threw some shit before, you didn't fire a warning shot in those instances. What was the distinguishing fact why you would fire one now? So there are a lot of questions here. Let's see. If you brandish a weapon and discharge this weapon, you are responsible for the outcome. And then sit by said 100%. I agree, Paul. I agree with you 100% that you hit the nail on the head. All right. But again, there are questions.
One of those times was on April 10th, 2023.
You would assume that somebody who was threatening customers, who was throwing bricks, that would be the problem.
Police didn't see it that way. The 39-year-old Williams was booked with aggravated battery. Even after the district attorney's office added an extra charge before trial, what's known as a firearms enhancement, Williams and his family figured it would all get sorted out by the court system.
We all just really thought it was just gonna always be a self-defense type thing.
I'm gonna just be honest. I disagree. Now, should the firearm enhancement have been added? It depends on the facts and circumstances, but absolutely nothing about this. I don't have enough information to feel comfortable saying that he was in immediate fear of death or serious bodily harm. Because as someone who walks around pretty much 99.9% of the time, if I'm in public, I got that goddamn it on me. I'm not firing a warning shot. If I pull out a gun, it's not to warn anybody of anything. And honestly, if him pulling out the firearm, brandishing it would probably have had the same effect as taking it out and shooting out a warning shot. And in some states, you can't brandish a firearm. Luckily, I don't live in one of those states for me. But I don't know. Nothing about this, just with the facts that we have, says self-defense. The fact that it was a warning shot shows that you weren't in immediate fear of death or serious bodily harm, in my opinion. If you were in immediate fear that this guy was going to kill, if that guy would have had a gun, I guarantee you he would have shot him immediately. That's immediate fear. I don't know if a warning shot, you could argue it, but generally, I know law enforcement are told you don't do warning shots. Security officers are taught, when I was a security officer, or my guys who are special police officers, security officers, you don't do warning shots. You pull your firearm out only in very limited circumstances. So I think, this is just me, I think him probably not following proper protocols landed him into this situation. But I don't see a self-defense thing here, just as it is on his face.
The trial did not go well for Williams.
Not only was he convicted, but he was convicted with a gun enhancement charge. And we were just amazed at how the system could have failed him.
Williams faced anywhere from probation to up to 10 years in prison for the aggravated battery. But in Louisiana, the firearms enhancement tacks on an extra mandatory sentence of 10 years. He was taken into custody immediately.
Now, real quick, let's talk about this. I appreciate that, Paul, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. Now, okay, was the firearm enhancement appropriate? You all let me know, yes or no. I think without a shadow of a doubt, aggravated battery, I didn't even look at the definition in Louisiana, but I know a battery is generally unlawful contact of another in a harmful or offensive manner. I know because you control the instrumentality that caused the injury to this guy, you caused the battery. I think that's easy. Aggravated battery, check. Was the firearm enhancement appropriate? I think the prosecutors were within their legal rights to add the firearm enhancement. Generally, with firearm enhancements at state levels, it depends on the office of the attorney general. If I'm an attorney general in a state, generally my policy is going to be, if you have a firearm, we are adding the firearm enhancement. You generally make that as a broad rule, but for two reasons. One, you want to be consistent, but two, you want to be tough on goofies who are out here committing crimes and they have firearms. Again, the enhancement would be different in most states, how the law is written. The enhancement is one thing if you have a firearm during the commission, is another thing if you brandish the firearm during the commission, is another thing if the firearm is discharged during the commission. And in some state, it may be another thing if a person is injured due to that discharge because during the commission of the crime. But I think the firearm enhancement was properly charged. Now, of course, prosecutors had discretion depending on if we got more information about this guy. You may or may not do it, but generally, if it's some gun shit, we're gonna be consistent. And if you got gunplay and you make a wrong mistake, if you had your training as a security guard, I'm holding you to the level and the standard of the training of what a reasonable security officer would have done. And I know they damn sure wouldn't have been told to fire a warning shot.
His family was devastated, especially his mom, Tanya Williams Brumfield.
This is a decent young man with a good family from a good background, and it just did not seem to matter.
It seemed very unfair.
A new attorney, Jerome Matthews, was appointed to represent Williams for the sentencing. He saw grounds for an appeal. The jury convicted Williams even though the victim never showed up for trial.
Okay, now it gets interesting. Now this is actually getting interesting because on the facts as we had them from the news article and up until this point, there's absolutely nothing that shows self-defense. But the victim doesn't show up. The victim isn't showing up for court. What should happen? Can the government prove their case if the victim isn't there? Let's go ahead and finish playing it real quick a little bit more, then we're going to talk about it.
And aside from the police report, the DA's office never even presented evidence that he was injured.
Okay, shout out to his attorney. Even though on the facts, I don't see anything that says self-defense, but having a victim in a case like this is paramount to the success of the case. Showing that an actual injury occurred. I don't know who the prosecutor was who prosecuted this case during trial, but they should probably be fired. That's the number one thing that you have to show, that a person was actually injured. The fact you didn't even need the guy to be there to show the injury. If the guy was treated for the injury, you probably could have brought in a paramedic. Let's see. There's other ways you could have corroborated that he was injured without having them there, and it wouldn't have been hearsay. So the prosecutors was terrible in this case, but I do agree that those are issues that are ripe for appeal.
Was protecting the store, self-defense, no victim. He was still
It's not self-defense, but the prosecution was stupid, so you do have a basis for appeal, but definitely not self-defense.
convicted of aggravated battery.
It really tore the family down.
Matthews filed a flurry of motions to try and get the conviction overturned. In an unprecedented move, the DA's office joined one of them.
Now, this is what I want to know. The DA office joined a motion that was filed by his defense attorney. We're going to find out what it is. But I would like to know, was the DA's office under the same regime at the time that the conviction was enacted, the time that the conviction was handed down?
An attempt to get the firearms enhancement thrown out.
Even the district attorney said, okay, this is excessive.
But the verdict could not be undone. Retired Judge Jerome Winsberg, former chief judge at the New Orleans Criminal Court, said jury verdicts with mandatory sentences are almost untouchable.
The law dictates in these mandatory minimum sentence, which would apply here, that the judge impose.
And I'm going to be honest, just because he has an issue for appeal doesn't mean that his issue is one that would actually win him this case. Because just on the facts, I think the charges were actually correct. I think the charges of the aggravated battery the firearm enhancement were 100% correct. Now, that's different of whether the government actually met their burden. And most times, he had a trial. If the jury found that the government met his burden, that shit is hard to overcome.
The sentence as written.
Then the case took a bizarre turn. The case was allotted to a new judge for sentencing. Letters of support for Williams flooded in.
We had 31 letters from family members, I believe, including saying that as soon as he's released from custody, we had his supervisor said he can come right back to work.
Matthews attempted the longest of legal long shots.
This is literally a Hail Mary.
What Matthews did basically was throw his client to the mercy of the court, sometimes called a Dorothy motion, sometimes called ends of justice. It amounted to a last-ditch plea for compassion.
It's very rare that it happens.
Yet it worked.
All right, so real quick, what happened here? They call it different things in different places. Ends of justice. When I was doing state court stuff, it was a MAR, a motion for appropriate relief. Yo, something crazy happened in court, and we're going in front of you, Judge, to ask that you rectify that previous judicial matter. I'm just going to be honest. What happened here is this guy got lucky as fuck, and he actually found a judge who was empathetic and sympathetic to his cause, to the amount of time. I generally agree with this concept and this statement, Paul. 10 years is excessive, but I'm conflicted because I think that the charges were legit charges. This was an aggravated battery, and a firearm enhancement was appropriate, and the DA found it appropriate. The only thing they're saying, but for the district attorney jumping on board saying maybe we should remove the firearm enhancement. I think that's the only reason why the judge agreed to let him just get that probationary sentence and the firearm enhancement be moved. It had nothing to do with the fact that the witness didn't show up. It had nothing to do with the fact that they didn't prove the injury because the jury said you are fucking guilty. It's solely because the prosecutor got on board and said, yeah, the firearm enhancement was wild. Had the prosecutor not got on board, I do not see a situation where the judge would have unilaterally done that without the prosecutor agreeing to it, because they probably would have lost the next election because somebody would have made the argument that they are weak on crime, which is what I would have made, and it is what it is. But that's the only thing that saved him. He just got absolutely fucking lucky. He should be, like, every day he should be praying and giving God all the glory because he got lucky as fuck.
In a ruling that may take place once a decade at Tulane and Broad, Judge Simone Levine sentenced Williams to probation and credit for the 8 months he had already.
He got the right judge and the right prosecutor who said, we're going to sign off saying that the enhancement should go. Once the enhancement was gone, the 10-year minimum mandatory sentence was gone, and now he could do probation and get credit for that time that he served.
Served behind bars.
All I could do was cry.
The judge ruled that a 10-year sentence would be excessive. She was moved by Williams' personal story, describing him as, quote, a dutiful son, patient sibling, responsible father, competent and conscientious employee, and responsible citizen. Loyola law professor Dane Cialino said the legal move is hardly ever tried, much less granted.
Quite extraordinary, and the judge obviously making every effort to bulletproof the reasons for imposing that sentence below the statutory minimum.
I don't know. I don't think the judge bulletproofed the reason. Honestly, I don't see any, like, unconstitutional. Like, nah. She just threw constitutional language in there to make it sound like she did something. But I don't think this was a Constitution thing. I think this was what we talked about before. Generally, if I'm a judge, if the defendants and the prosecution agreed to do it, I'm okay with it. They agreed that the enhancement was too much, so the judge was okay with saying, okay, we're going to do a motion for appropriate relief. All parties agreed that this enhancement was too much, so we're going to move forward as if he was just charged with aggravated battery, which he could get probation for. I don't think the judge did. I've clerked for federal judges, justices on state Supreme Courts. The judge didn't come up with a nuanced piece of legal writing that just was the nail in the coffin for this case. It was just an agreement by the prosecutor and defense attorney, and the judge used the word constitution. It wasn't no shade to the judge, but this wasn't a constitutional heavy argument that was unlike anything we've heard before. They literally just used the word unconstitutional.
It does take a brave judge to do that very thing. And you can see how rarely it's done.
Williams is now reunited with his daughter and back at work.
Okay, so shout out to Mr. Williams for being back with his daughter. Now, that was an interesting story, but wait, there's a little bit more to this story. His mom is looking at jail time. How did we get from Mr. Williams potentially being in custody for 10 years to now mom's potentially having to serve prison time? What the hell is going on? Well, let's go ahead. We about to dive into this story, and then we're going to get out of here. But this story actually takes a very, very unique turn.
Firing a warning shot that hit a belligerent trespasser. Williams got the break when a judge declared the sentence unfair and unconstitutional. But now his mom is facing a felony charge of her own. So did Tanya Brumfield go too far in helping her son? Investigative reporter.
Now, okay, did she go too far helping her son? We talked about the son's charges. Were they warranted? Were they not warranted? I think the charges in her son's cases were all viable charges. I can see how the enhancement is a little too much considering the facts. And unfortunately, or fortunately for her son, that bullet hit the right person. It hit a homeless person who nobody give a shit about. Because if that bullet would have hit anybody else, his ass would have been there for 10 years. This goes to show you, if you're homeless and don't got no money, if that homeless guy was another hardworking citizen just like him, that guy would have been in prison for 10 fucking years. 100%. If that guy was not homeless, he was a blue-collar, 9-to-5 guy, everybody in the chat would agree that, nah, he need to go sit down for 10 years. I don't give a fuck. I mean, I think that's a shout out to him shooting somebody that society don't give a fuck about. That's really what it boils down to. But we talked about his story. Is the charges that his mother is currently facing, are they warranted?
Mike Pearlstein explores this case in this exclusive and bizarre story.
Nicholas Williams' family and friends were in disbelief when he was hauled off to jail after being convicted of aggravated battery.
How could you possibly arrest someone for protecting themselves from harm?
Williams was working as a district attorney's office, took the unusual step. Deputies arrested her. She was booked with
This is excessive.
Distressed, Brumfield decided to seek help. So she called the community hotline of the Holy Cross Counseling Center and spoke to a student in training.
Okay, huge red flag here. Do not speak to a student in training like that. I don't even know Thomas E. Chambers counseling. So right here is where this story picks up. They're saying it's self-defense. We already covered all of this. Then she calls the counseling center and talks to a student in training. I'm telling you right now, I don't want to talk to no fucking student. I don't even want to talk to the students who live in my house sometimes, my kids. So that being said, if it's something that's impacted by like kids, they're in custody, I don't really want to talk to a student. I need to talk to, like, no shade to any interns out there. I need to talk to a non-intern or a non-person in training.
Said, okay, this is excessive.
Distressed, Brumfield decided to seek help. So she called the community hotline of the Holy Cross Counseling Center and spoke to a student in training.
I did seek counseling because I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Brumfield didn't think much of the call. But at her son's next court hearing, deputies arrested her. She was booked with public intimidation for allegedly threatening the judge in her son's case.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is okay. Real talk. I'm just going to keep it a buck. This is not a laughing matter, but this is kind of funny. You call the hotline to seek counseling. I'm assuming what happened is while you on a hotline, you was like, yeah, man, this fucking judge gave him this goofy ass sentence. Like, that judge need their ass whipped. You probably was on that hotline talking all sorts of stuff. You probably were of the belief, because it said counseling center and Holy Cross in the title or something spiritual, that this was some form of confidentiality, that they couldn't disclose it. And now it ended you up here at court. This is actually this is this is this is actually insane that this actually ended up in court, all because of her phone call to a counseling center.
Deputies arrested her. She was booked with public intimidation for allegedly threatening the judge in her son's case.
I was shocked because I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong.
But in this arrest warrant, a New Orleans police officer who took the complaint wrote that Brumfield, quote, believed her son was unjustly going to jail, described herself as going berserk, and that she planned to go to the courthouse, cause a scene, and harm Judge Holmes to draw media attention.
Yeah, this is actually this. Hey, I'm sorry. It's not funny, but it's actually it's ridiculous all over. Okay, what do I think about this with what we got so far? I'm gonna just be honest. I don't think that the student. Maybe the student could not like this lady. The student could be someone who's just a bad person. I don't know, but I think it's unlikely that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think the probability that an intern or student trainee would make this conversation up. Not saying it can't happen. I just think that it is possible, but I think the probability is low. I could see her. Said, think about it. She said, I need to call somebody because I just couldn't deal with it. I could actually see her calling this place and describing this, yo, I'm going berserk and I'm going to go to the courthouse and cause a scene. Like, I'm just be honest. In light of what her son was going through, this is a mama. This is a black mama. All mamas love their babies. Most mamas who are decent love their babies. But I could actually see her calling to do this. And I think it's very less likely, not unlikely, but less likely that an intern just made this up. I think that she called, she thought she had some type of confidentiality and said all of this stuff. And I don't know if those phone calls are recorded in that, but I don't think that this is made up. Could be, but I don't think so.
Brumfield admits saying she would create a scene, but strongly denies threatening Judge Kimya Holmes.
I feel as though I've been wrongfully accused.
That's a sweet picture. She's a sweet old woman. But I feel fairly confident that she called that line talking shit. I feel fairly confident that she called that line talking shit like, yo, I'm about to wild out on this judge. This shit is crazy. Because I could just see, like, real talk, that's some shit my moms would probably do. If that was DFD and I was jammed up, my mother might, it's a holy too, and it sound real religious. Oh, definitely my mother would call there and would be talking all kinds of shit. Like, I could see that actually happen.
Grandmother of 7 with no criminal history, an employee of a local law firm, ended up in jail for 11 days before she made bail.
The worst 11 days of my life, and I've never been more humiliated or embarrassed.
At a recent court hearing, Brumfield's attorney, Stephen Smith, tried unsuccessfully to get the charge thrown out.
I never in a million years would have dreamed that it would have gone this far.
Her attorney used the officer's body cam recording while taking the complaint to show that there was never a mention of a threat of physical harm. He noted that his client attended subsequent court hearings and, quote, sat like a church mouse, never said a word.
Okay, that was interesting. Let me rewind that real quick.
Have gone this far.
Her attorney used the officer's body cam recording while taking the complaint to show that there was never a mention of a threat.
That's actually a very, very big deal. The body cam recording while taking the complaint. The complainant had to be the person on the phone call. They had to get the facts from the person on the phone call. So that's actually very, very important.
Of physical harm. He noted that his client attended subsequent court hearings and, quote, sat like a church mouse, never said a word. Nicholas's attorney, Jerome Matthews, saw Brumfield regularly in court.
She always sat there very respectfully and was just waiting on the outcome of her son.
Are you a threat to anybody?
Absolutely not.
Brumfield is now out on bail, but required to wear an electronic ankle monitor.
This is crazy, bro. This whole story is actually crazy. Now this grandma, this Mima, Nana, whatever you want to call her. Hey, shout out to having your toes done and ankle tattoos and ankle bracelets. But this is actually crazy. She are like they monitoring her movement. This is actually insane.
With her next hearing set for August. But she recently found a powerful new advocate, the Burrell Law Firm, which hired her despite her legal predicament.
We're going to support her full-fledged. Doesn't seem like she has a threatening bone in her body.
Attorney Dwayne Burrell said he actually considers Brumfield's devotion to her son as a positive.
Now, she was charged with it was essentially making public threats to a judicial official. Now, this is actually interesting because that's actually a very good point you brought up, Molly. I appreciate it. That's actually interesting because the very first thing that I thought of was if I called a counseling service and I say like, yo, I'm about to wild out on this judge, I think the first question that came to my mind is that actually public? I don't think that meets the definition or what most legal definitions of public. I would actually have to take a look at the statute, but I think of a civil context. They have a civil thing you can sue somebody for. It's called public disclosure of private facts. If I know a private fact about you and I tell it to one person, that probably wouldn't constitute a public disclosure. But if I told it to 7 people or 10 people in a small community or small circle, or I published it in a magazine or something. So the very first thought I had, though, is that charge specifically said a public threat. And I was like, it's calling the hotline, speaking to a student intern, a public threat. I don't know. I don't think it's public. The only reason it became public is because it was divulged in this process. And so that's actually a good legal question that I'm sure the Burrell Law Firm is going to look into. Ankle monitor is wild, but shout out to grandmas with ankle tattoos, bro. Hey, shout out to y'all out here.
It doesn't say anything about her character. She's fighting for her son. Obviously want justice for her son. That's what she should do.
But after more than 8 months waiting to resolve her case, Brumfield admits getting worn down.
Every day is a challenge, physically, mentally, emotionally.
She says the ankle bracelet makes her situation even worse, especially around her grandkids.
I'm just going to be honest, though. Hey, let me back up real quick. All right. Hey, shout out to her. Grandma's wearing that ankle bracelet, though. I'm not saying you could style an ankle bracelet, but if you could, she's like, you know what? Put that ankle bracelet on this tattooed ankle. Like, shout out to grandmas with ankle bracelets. I like that.
Makes her situation even worse, especially around her grandkids.
I have to hide it from them because they're going to ask, Grammy, what's that on your ankle? And it hurts.
Despite her own difficult situation, Brumfield knows that if not for that call to a student counselor, her son may be in prison now, counting down the days of a 10-year sentence.
If having this monitor on set my son free, it was worth it.
All right, so that's this story. I agree that an ankle bracelet is wild. Like, I mean, like, okay, even let's say hypothetically she did in fact call and say all that. I don't know if it meets the legal definition of a public threat, just first. But 2, even if it did, is she actually like, does she even need an ankle monitor? Like, the pretrial conditions are kind of crazy. Do they think like she's going to flee and run town and get away? That's actually insane. But I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting story. Shout out to him for not having to do a 10-year mandatory sentence. A big shout out to the prosecutor for signing off on that and agreeing to remove the firearm enhancement charge. And I got to follow up because right now I don't know what's going on with mom's case because it's still pending. But I don't know. I hope it works out. I actually got more sympathy for moms in her case working out than I did for the son. Because the son just got lucky. He just shot somebody who we just don't give a fuck about. Say what it want, but everybody in the chat who says, yeah, I don't think he deserved a mandatory minimum, y'all telling me that y'all don't care about homeless people. Because if he would have shot and a warning shot and hit a teacher, everybody would have been like, bro, he hit a teacher, bro. Like, nah, you gotta go sit down, bro. The rules is the rules. I don't think people, but you shot a homeless guy who didn't show up. Nobody give a fuck about that homeless guy. That's kind of jacked up. Let me see. I bet her grandchild listen to her now. Street cred. Hey, I tell you, a grandma who tatted up and got an ankle brace, if she tell you don't touch the cookie jar, I'm not one to touch the cookie jar. Hey, Granny, you got it. But y'all let me know what y'all think about it. Do y'all think this is going to work out favorably for grandma or not? Hopefully, grandma get the same judge who hooked her son up. If that's the case, grandma going to go home. If not, a lot of judges view things like this as, yo, if you threaten one judge, you're willing to threaten or do something to all of us. So this is actually going to be very interesting to see how this play out. I hope it does work out for her, just to put a nice bow around this story, because I think her charges are actually more ridiculous than the son's charges, in my personal opinion. Yo, that's it for this video. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Friday, we're going to talk about cops who want to be drug dealers who getting deleted. It's crazy. We're going to dive into it. As always, I'm very grateful. Y'all be blessed and have a good night. Peace.